Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Black, and this is my podcast. I initially recorded this podcast at the studio where I actually ended up using a more professional setup. And again, we have now circled back to me using a less than professional setting, which is more in my hotel room, which I have repeatedly on several different times said that due to circumstances that are out of my control temporarily, every now and again I will produce a podcast episode that's going to sound less than professional. And this is that one. Now, there was professional audio recorded for this podcast. However, remember when I said I was a novice engineer, a novice audio engineer? Well, here's the thing. When you go to a recording studio and you're a novice engineer and you only sign up for what, a 2 hour session, and you get in there and the mics and everything are not appropriately set up, or the person that was in there before basically just had a field day with the devices, it ends up really like messing with your stuff. So it's kind of really weird. um that's why I think, honestly, I truly believe that it would be a lot better if I just recorded my podcast at the studio with my own equipment. So essentially, I just book the studio and use my own stuff to record it, as opposed to going to the studio and literally using their equipment. At least this way, I'll be able to maintain some sort of consistency with my audio and consistency with my content. I think that that's really nice. But unfortunately, times do not allow for that, so that's unfortunate. Anyway, so we had an election. We had a massive election cycle, a massive election season. It's 2024. Every 4 years, we run through the same thing, the same tracks, the same essential gimmick. And this year, it was no different. This year, Donald Trump won the election. Despite the fact that we thought that Kamala Harris was going to win, because we really thought that she was poised to win, but it only looked like she was poised to win because of the, all her rallies and the great turnout, the number of people that showed up, and how many Gen Z's voters showed up, and everything like that, from social media and all these different things, content that was coming out, donors, and everything that was going on. It really did appear like Kamala Harris was really set to win this election. Unfortunately, she did not. VP, Veep, Vice President Kamala Harris, in fact, lost the election bid to be the first, in a long time, vice president to take over the presidential seat through a vote. Frankly, it was disheartening and it was sad. Not because I was in 110% support of her. I was mostly I'd say about 75%. But at the same time, still sort of expected more, got a lot less than what I expected. So, Donald Trump won, and this is like the second time that Donald Trump has run against a female candidate and won. And I think that we have sort of like set him up to win every election, because we put him against women who have already been in the White House, that the general public is going to see as, no matter their role, no matter the fact that they had like very limited to absolutely no role in the politics that was going on, or they had very little to do with whatever was going on and what the president was actually doing. These women, having been in the White House in any way and having worked in politics in any way, are just getting a bunch of flack from constituents on the opposite side. It's so bad. We had Clinton run, and she got so much flack because she was like state senator, and then she had, she was her husband was the president, she was married to him, and then the emails and her work in politics over the years. And then you had Kamala Harris, who people were upset because Biden was the president, and Biden was basically asleep at the fucking wheel all through the last 2 years of his presidency. This man has been asleep at the fucking wheel, and as a result, the general public essentially chose to elect neither of those candidates. And I think the sad part about it is that those candidates were both women. And it makes it look bad because to a lot of the young female voters, it makes it appear as though America somehow doesn't like women. And then the Republicans and a lot of people will try to spin it that way and say, oh, yeah, we don't like women, blah, blah, blah. But that's not actually the case. The case is not that they don't like women. The case is just that they don't like those women. Because those women were in the White House, and as far as anyone is concerned, they had a role to play, even though they did not have a role to play. And I think that that's one of the problems with politics. And when people are looking at politics from the outside in, people who have like no real interest in politics and kind of just vote, like your general public, like your general people who pay very little attention to politics, those people, when they vote, they're gonna vote with that mindset. Like, oh my God, you were in the White House. You could have done something, blah, 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 blah. And as opposed to people who have some sort of like knowledge of how politics works, or who have actually genuinely paid any amount of attention to politics and genuinely care about politics, then those people tend to have a different view on things. They're more likely to say things like America probably just doesn't like women, and they're also more likely to just say that things are certain that that the other people are stupid. And it's crazy. Oh boy. I tried to get into that in my last recording. It was so weird. I don't even know where to begin. Oh my gosh. So, when here's what I want to do. I wanted to dissect. Initially, I thought I was going to dissect Hillary Clinton running against Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris running against Donald Trump versus Joe Biden running against Donald Trump, but all three of those scenarios are incredibly different. See, when Donald Trump ran against Hillary, he was very like bloodthirsty, and he chose to basically attack her on every negative highlight of her career. And then on top of that, people already had the general public, the Americans. This is just generalized and in general, already had an idea of who they thought Hillary Clinton was, given that her husband was in office. So a lot of what you saw was, a reaction of the general public to that. You had Hillary Clinton, who was married to Bill Clinton, who was this guy who cheated on his wife in the White House with Monica Lewinsky. And that's what people remember. When people think about Hillary Clinton, a lot of the times they talk about that. And then you remember this is also a woman who did not support like the LGBTQ and all these different things. And then she backpedaled on that when she started running, and she was good friends with Princess Diana. Clinton's had a really interesting career, a really interesting life, and then the whole thing with like the Watergate. So when people see Clinton, they associate certain failures of her career and certain failures of her husband's career to her. So she already had that going against her, and then you're going against this guy who has a rhetoric where he just says what he wants, does not care, and is very kind of blunt with his rhetoric and his speech. She didn't really stand a chance. So even after they put her in front of all these cameras, in front of all these interviews, doing these interviews, all these network television, all these different things, she already had so much going against her, as opposed to him. He is this guy who is like a businessman, had like The Apprentice, he had all these properties, and despite all of the issues that they had going on with the properties there, that where he wouldn't allow certain people, black and brown people, to rent, and all these different things throughout the years. Despite that, people didn't look at him in such a light, because what they essentially looked at him as was just as this guy who, not for nothing, was just a businessman who had a really good show and who has over the years proven that he's really good with being in control, being in power, and being in a leadership role. Whereas when people look at Clinton, they basically associate all the failures of her career to her, and the things that her husband's failures to her, and all the different scandals and all these different things. And they're looking at him, and they're only seeing what they see like on television, this and all these different, Trump this, Trump that, Trump that, blah blah blah, and it's on this and on this and this hotel's night, blah blah blah, and he's kind of become like this staple in a way where even he said it. He could stand in the middle of Times Square and fire a round at someone, and people would still vote for him because he ran a business, he ran a company, and as a result, people firmly believe that he could run the country. You know, so when these politicians try to attack him on these things, especially like Clinton, they try to attack him, say things like, "Oh, he was this and he did this and this is it." People, a lot of people, like, yeah, it resonates with some people, but it only resonates with certain people. The general consensus, the general thing, is that at the end of the day, they think that he could do the job. Essentially, because he ran his own company, despite how the circumstances of him doing it, they just see the fact that he ran a company, has billions of dollars in companies, is a billionaire, and is able to turn all his failures into like an insane empire. So they literally believe that this man could turn the U.S. into a fucking empire, as opposed to Clinton. And that's kind of where where you start to see the line get drawn as to who people are going to vote for, more or less. Because people are really talking about the economy, and then you have a lot of small business owners and people who own businesses. People who own businesses across the fence, no matter the race, in general. They're looking at that, and then they're looking at this woman who has, like, all of these, like, politics for so many years, all these scandals, all these issues, husband, she stays with him, all these different things, like, and so it was easier for him to get voters while running against her. It was easier for him to do that. And then the fact that he's tried for so long to run for president and to become the head of the RNC, the GOP ticket, just the fact that he's done that for so long, it's really put like this, it's also grown his popularity, because people are always like, well, this guy keeps going, why does he keep going, why does he keep blah blah blah. And so when he ended up getting to the top and the front of the ticket, it was very easy to know that he was going to win at that point. It was just clear. And then he got into office, and he was pretty good for a while. A lot of the things that he did, a lot of things that he said, people did not agree with and did not support, obviously. But then a lot of the things that he did in office, such as sanctions and pulling money out of places and saying, hey, if you don't want to do this, blah, 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 we'll take money from you, and being very strong-armed in the way that he approached international relations in office, that kind of led to like a lot of American people supporting him as a result of that. The only thing that really brought him down was his approach to the pandemic. Had he had a better approach to the pandemic, he likely would have stayed in office, for sure. Because once the pandemic came and he started making certain comments that essentially were very disruptive and dangerous to the lives of the American people, it was obvious that he was going to get voted out, because people cared about their families more than they cared about him being president. So that was a time where people looked at that and they said, okay, we're not going to make you president because this is a massive disaster that's happening, and you are, essentially lollygagging and making jokes, and it's dangerous jokes. We need you out of office so we can get someone in office who can actually do the job and help the American people. So as a result of that, it was easy to see how Joe Biden was even able to slide into a presidency while running against him. And while they put so many people to run against on the DNC ticket to, go pit them all against each other to see who would be the best fit, ultimately Americans went with Joe Biden because Joe Biden had been vice president before under Barack Obama. And because of Barack Obama's strengths and the positivities that came from the Obama administration, it was really just something that a wave that he could ride all the way into the White House. And this was great. Joe's finally in the White House. This is a plan he wanted for years. He's been working in politics for years. I mean, this man was in politics for years, man, and he has a long record in there. So as a result, it was very clear. It was very, very clear that he would have gotten elected at that point and at that time, and he got in there and he rode the wave. But unfortunately, while he did get into office, he was, aging, and he was already at he was older already. So what we ended up seeing while Biden has been in office is essentially Biden aging. Like literally, he was just aging, and you could see the point where it was time for him to retire from politics altogether. Within 2 years of him being in office, the following 2 years of him being in office, after 2021 and 2022, it was obvious that it was time for him to step down. And things went awry from there. Everything just went awry. It became apparent that he was now asleep at the wheel and was no longer able to do the job of a president. And it was clear that perhaps other people were doing the job and he was just being a figurehead. And he clearly didn't like that, which I understand. Like, when you're in a position of power, it's very difficult to accept that people want you out of that position, to accept that people want you to retire. And I get that one of the things that he probably also looks at is how many other elder people are in politics for decades up until they completely croak like Dianne Feinstein. So in looking at that, I can see why he was pretty pissed about, hey, why are you trying to retire me? I can do this. If she can do this, if they can do this, I can do it. And I respect it, but he was asleep at the wheel. Okay, this man was asleep at the wheel. He was and people were calling him Sleepy Joe Biden. No offense, I'm not calling you Sleepy Joe Biden, but I'm just saying, bro, you actually were zoning out. You were like Mitch McConnell level zoning out. Okay, it was time. It was time. So when it was time for Biden to go ahead and do his second round to have a re-election, and he got on stage to do that debate with Biden? Come on, bro. There was no way. Personally, I did not see the debate with Biden that time because I was out with a friend, so I was busy. But after seeing that debate with Biden, I didn't see it and catching clips of it and all the things that were airing all everywhere about it. It was obvious that he was not up to task to go into a second term as president, because all of the Democrats and all Democratic leaders, donors, and people who have been with the party for years and swing voters were like, this guy's got to go because he's not going to survive another term. He's not going to win. So out of a literal fear, the Democrats essentially go to Kamala Harris, and they say, look, you take the wheel now. You take over. This is your job now. We want you to fix this, essentially. So all the donors, they get on the phone. They have this massive meeting. I remember it was really harsh. Everyone's yelling, this family, that family. And so Cam takes over. Now, when Cam takes over, it becomes this big deal where we're like, okay, we have to rush this process. The only reason, one of the leading reasons of why they put her in office, why they picked her, essentially, was because she had the social media thing rolling. Like, she was on social media as VP, and people loved her as VP, as vice president. Everybody loved this woman as vice president. Everyone was like, yeah, Cam, oh my God, coconut tree. What do you think you've had a coconut tree? And everyone, it was amazing. It was great. It was a wave that she could ride all the way home. However, here's the problem. Cam also has a rap sheet. Not particularly like Clinton, but she also has a little bit of a rap sheet. No one believed that she could do the job, and she was not gonna get in office. Okay, she was. They took too long to put her. It took too long to put her on a ticket. That's number one. Honestly, I think what they should have done was just let Biden ride the fucking wave all the way to the election. People would have probably voted him out, or if we were lucky, they would have voted for him, and then we could have had him step down while in office and handed the baton to Kamala Harris, it would have saved ourselves a lot of trouble. But that's not what they did. You know, they put her on this ticket. Um, they put her up there and said, "Oh, she's in support of reproductive rights." That was the only thing they gave her. She had no real policies or nothing. No real policies. You go to her website, they had a policy thing that they made up for her. She didn't even repeat those policies when she was doing her rallies. 95% of what she said in her rallies were all just repeats of what she said the first time around. She had no real agenda in running for politics. She would keep repeating herself. She kept repeating this talk about when I was a child and my, second mother and middle class family, grew up in a middle class family and all these different things. And it was like, okay, great, 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 great. Perfect, babe. We love you. We love that. But we need more from you. I was campaigning for her in several different states. I was doing phone banking and all these other different things. And one of the things that a lot of Republican voters had, a lot of issues, a lot of the Republicans had was that she didn't have any real policies for what mattered to them. Because these one of the women I spoke to when I was out there, she was a farmer. She's a farmer, and she said that she was not going to vote for Cam because she wanted a farm policy. Because while she agrees with wanting a reproductive policy in some ways, she's a farmer and she wanted something that would sway her, and what would have swayed her to vote for Cam would have been a farm policy, and Cam had absolutely no farm policy, no agriculture policy whatsoever. Even her mother, I believe, who was a lifelong Democrat, said she wasn't going to vote because she didn't believe that Cam could do it. A lot of people thought that, this woman also said that she fully believed that this presidency was handed to Cam and that her entire career was given to her. Which, if you look at history, if you look up all her past debates with all the other people that she's debated with over the years, in a way, it sort of does seem like, this entire thing was handed to her. Her entire career as a prosecutor and everything was given to her on a silver platter, even though it wasn't, because all the people that she's ever gone up against have been less than adequate and less than suitable to be in the positions that they were in the first place, and she just happened to be there. But this presidency bid that they gave to her, it was really just a right place, the right time kind of thing, and it's really unfortunate that she did lose. I do feel sympathy for her. My sympathies go out to her and her family as such for this situation here. But what I will say 110% is that this is a significant issue. It's now caused people to fully believe that America does not like women, which is not necessarily true. It's just that America hasn't found or met or gotten a female candidate that is essentially worthy of the vote on all ends. America needs a candidate who fully, if you're going to run for president, you need to be ready to and prepared to appeal to all of the American people and not just one specific group, not just one specific issue and ideology. You need to meet Americans where they are. And what we have is a lot of Americans who have literally nothing. One of the issues that arise for me was that I really paid attention to was the failures of Trump's presidency. The failure in Trump's presidency was that fucking pandemic, and that's what got him voted out, because the American people did not think he was able to and adequate of a candidate to take care of that, to take care of the pandemic. They didn't believe he was up to task, and as a result, they voted him out. As for Kamala, we're looking at a woman who, not for nothing, was not up to task for having that position as president, because she didn't have any real policies. She didn't have any real foreign policies, any real local policies, and they felt that slapping her in front of a camera with a bunch of people consistently would be the best solution to giving her a chance at being president, which was not true at all. The only real option that she would have had for becoming president was if she had gone to North Carolina, gone to Florida, gone to these places with the massive hurricane that just took place, and went out there and got to work helping those people. If she had gone in there and not just taking a bunch of photos, not just, shook hands and not just say, oh my God, we're going to help you, blah, 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 blah. If she had actually gone down there, put some gloves on, put some boots on, and started helping people, then I fully believe that she would have actually gotten all the votes that would have been necessary enough to win the candidacy. So the major failure of her campaign was her not being present for the hurricane that occurred. If she actually had been more present for that hurricane, it would have shown the American people that she was the leader that they needed. So right now, people actually believe that she's not much of a leader. They don't think that she's a leader. I had one of the guys that I spoke to on the phone while I was phone banking. He actually did not believe that she was an adequate enough leader. And the reason why is because they're talking about policies and policies that Biden didn't pass while he was in office, policies that they thought that Biden should have been able to get across, especially having her as his vice president. And the failures of Biden's administration have all fallen on Kamala Harris, and it's very it was really really weird. She wanted to be president so badly that and wanted to run this campaign so badly that she forgot how powerful the American people are, and she especially forgot that the American people really do react to hard times, and the American people use those hard times to decide who's a real leader. If you look at Trump's campaign after the pandemic for the election in 2020, and you compare it to Kamala's map for right now here in 2024, it's literally nearly identical to what happened then. Now, while Trump had to face the American people with a massive pandemic where many lives were lost, Kamala had to face states that had massive flooding. A dam broke in North Carolina, and the only thing that Cam had mentioned about that thing that happened in North Carolina was that a mother lost her husband because this little family, mother and daughter, the father went to see what was going on or something, and then the father died as a result of the hurricane. And that was the only thing that she had really mentioned about it, besides a few other tidbits that she'd mentioned here or there. But she never really got there to speak too much about what was going on. Biden was the one who was doing the bulk of the addressing about FEMA and what was going on with the FEMA hurricane and the storm and blah, blah, blah. And people were going nuts because people fully believed that it was so bad. Those people fully believed that they were not getting help and that they were not getting assistance as a result of who they vote for. Now, North Carolina has voted blue before. They voted blue when they had Obama. They voted blue for Obama. And when it came to Biden, obviously they voted red. But when it came to Cam, they continued to vote red because of the situation that occurred. She didn't give the people of North Carolina a reason to change their mind and turn blue and vote blue. The people of North Carolina got no excuse or no reason of why they should have gone ahead and voted Democrat. All she did was further cement their beliefs that the Democrats don't care about the people on the other side of the table. They don't care. By not showing up to the people in North Carolina, by not showing up to them and saying, oh, this is what's going on with FEMA, blah, 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 it was a major failure on her part, and it cost her the campaign. That's without a doubt, 110%. Biden tried to address the FEMA thing, the head of FEMA tried to address the FEMA thing, but the people weren't listening. So what they then did was they essentially stopped talking about it, which, again, another failure on their behalf. The fact that they stopped talking about it and went on to do other concerts and all these other things was a massive failure. Kamala ended up getting a bunch of support from a lot of celebrities, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, which was great. Every single one of her campaign rallies, there was another artist that was doing a concert, which, honestly, that's fine. That's fantastic. Great. Thank you. And they were all speaking about the same thing. In my opinion, personally, what she should have done was go down to North Carolina, where they had literally just had this massive hurricane, and she should have spoken with the people about what was going on. She could have had one of those same concerts for the people of North Carolina. She could have had artists come over there to North Carolina and do one or two little songs, sing a little song, do a little dance, bang, 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 a little break dance. Oh yeah, you're so nice, whatever. And it would have generated a lot more support. Specifically, it would have generated a lot more support from the people of North Carolina. They would have generated a lot more support from the people of Florida. Now, there was talk about her trying to speak to DeSantis about the hurricane and all these different things, but DeSantis also didn't want her to come down there because, they didn't want it to be like overly political, but it was the fact that she didn't like try. As a president of the United States, or as someone running to be president of the United States, being a little pushy does not hurt. Another thing that I mentioned when I previously recorded this was for female candidates to start thinking about, what would a man do? Because when you're running for president, this is the 110% the time that you want to think to yourself, what would a man do? Like, for real. What will the most assertive part of me do in this situation? You got to be able to assert yourself. When you're in a role or when you're trying to lead a country, you need to be dominant, babe. You need to be dominant. You need to look people in the face and be like, yo, no, we're not doing that. I'm not fucking doing that. This is what's going to happen. This plane is going to land in one of your airfields. Even if it has to land in a fly-in community where someone is due to drop their plane when they get back. Okay? Air Force One will touch the fuck down here. We are going to go meet with constituents. We are going to go talk to them, and we are going to go see what they need, and we are going to go help them. And then DeSantis will be like, oh my God, but no, blah, blah, blah. No, fuck you, dude. You know why? Because I'm president. I am running for president, not you. You need to clear your fucking airfield. You need to call the fucking, who do you call? Aviation people. All those, what did they do? Air traffic controllers. Call them, tell them Air Force One is coming in right now, and get to fucking Florida, whatever state you're going to. Get down there, see what needs to be done, and lead. That is what people who lead fucking do. That's what they do. They get the fuck down there and they do it. Even if you have to land Air Force One in Virginia and take a bus. What? Do it. Pull out the presidential motorcade and have these motherfuckers drive you all the way down there. Grab some Pringles, some water, some Red Bull, whatever you need. Take a nap in the back. Have multiple drivers. Have them switch shifts and keep it pushing. Let's go. You have a whole campaign bus. Get on it. Let's go. Get on a private plane. Florida is famous for having airfields. Get on a private plane, a smaller one, Air Force One. Everybody get on there, boom. Clear it out, check it out, get it on it, and get down there and be like, this is what we're doing. We are here to help the American fucking people. End of discussion. The same shit in North Carolina. She should have gone down to North Carolina, seen the damage in North Carolina, put on some fucking boots, toss the heels in the back of the car, leave the heels on the airplane, put on some boots, get down there and say, oh, okay, cool, do you guys need some help? That is what the cameras should have been taking photos of. That is what people should have seen. They should have seen you down there with some fucking gloves on, in some boots, helping these people move shit. Now, if these people saw you moving logs and helping people get things out of their house, helping them with bags and things, if they saw Air Force One, not Air Force One, if they saw, what is that called? Secret Service people helping people too? What? You would have rolled in the fucking votes, babe. You would have rolled in the votes. You know why? Because that's what they want to see. That is what people want. People want to know that you are going to lead. And when they want to see someone who's going to lead, they want to know that you are going to get fucking dirty with them to fucking help them. Because that's what leaders do. They roll their fucking sleeves up when they have to and they get it done. If you go to all of these stores, any business, any business, and you talk to managers, people who run companies, the CEOs, the people that lead a team in those companies, even at the lower levels, ask them themselves, hey, have you ever rolled your sleeves up and did a job that one of your workers can do, or one of your regular people can do? And you know what they'll tell you? Yeah, hell yeah, I picked up a broom, I swept, I didn't just do that. How many times do you think Sirhan, before he ran the company, he had to go talk to these people, of course, help them out and do different things, all these things. The problem with certain people that run for president, and the problem that I'm having with, not to say that female candidates can't run for president, but I'm just saying, you got to think this through. You got to think about what the American people want. What do you want? Hell, what the fuck? What if it was you? What if it was you? Gavin Newsom. When California the other day, which I'm going to talk about that later, because California said they were going to do something, and the other night I was driving to the studio, and I was like, I saw so many tents, even though they said they were getting rid of the tents. I was driving to the studio, and there were so many fucking tents, bro. I was like, what the hell? And those tents were not there months ago, too, because, like, early weeks ago, all those tents were gone. Now, all of a sudden, they're quickly back. They've returned in like, massive numbers now, numerous. But when Newsom really put, pencil to the paper and said, you know what, pen to paper, and said, you know what, we're going to clean this shit up, we're going to get all these tents out of the street, try to help these people. Newsom was down in the fucking river. On the riverbank. Newsom was on the riverbank picking shit up. That's what people saw. That video circulated of Newsom doing stuff. Even if he didn't do it the entire time. Even if that was the only thing he picked up that entire time. That is what people saw. And that's when people saw that, they were like, oh, look at Newsom doing work. Hell yeah, Newsom's getting dirty. Because that's what people want, dude. And I know what you think. You'll probably think to yourself, oh, well, Donald Trump didn't do it. Donald Trump didn't do that. Donald Trump didn't have to. Because he was going to get the vote anyway. You know why he was going to get the vote? Because those people were in a red state. They already had their own perception of the Democratic Party. They already had their own perception of the Democratic people. Did you hear what they said when this hurricane happened? And they had to get money and help from FEMA? The first thing those people said is, we are not going to receive help because of who we vote for. The Democrats are not going to help us because we are Republicans. That's what they said. They looked at that and they said that you guys were going to go play politics instead of playing a leadership. Okay? And as a result, what did you do? You played politics instead of leadership. We haven't heard a word from those people in North Carolina recently, and I can't imagine what those people might have to say. I can't imagine. But the fact that they still turned up red all around, baby, they didn't even think about going blue. That says enough now, doesn't it? That says enough right there. That's just crazy. Fuck. Bro. Politics is a game. Politics is a numbers fucking game, babe. People gotta see you where you are. They gotta see you roll. They need to see you get down in the dumps and do it. They need to know that you could fight for them. They need to know that you are gonna take your heels off and put some boots on if a civil war broke out and picked up a gun. Saying that you have a Glock in your closet and a Glock in your house is not enough for these people. They need to know that you know how to fire it. Okay? They need to know that you know how to fire it. Okay? These people need to know that if anarchy took place, that you would get down and dirty if you had to. Now, I'm not saying that Trump would do that, because I'm definitely not saying that Trump would be that kind of guy to do that. But what I'm saying is, with the rhetoric that he has, he's amassed a bunch of people that would do it for him. If you get out there and show people that they could turn to you in their time of need, in their time of crisis, no matter what, those people will show up in numbers for you. They will show up in numbers to support you. Even if they typically vote red, you could turn a lot of people blue if you show up for them. You can help a lot. You do a lot more for yourself by showing up for people that already think you will never show up for them. A whole lot more. You know? It's really important for people to see that. Oh, bro. When I tell you, this is Trump's last term anyway. I don't know what the fuck 2028 is going to look like. I have no idea what 2028 is going to look like. I swear to God, 2028 is going to be a hard one. He can't run again, so we're going to have a new Republican candidate. I'm thinking it might be JD. We're going to have probably a new Democratic candidate. I imagine it'll be Kamala. I think that this is a great time on exit. This is a great time for Kamala to start preparing for 2028. If she plans on running in 2028, I think that this is a great time for her to really buckle down. This is the time for her to buckle down and to figure out what her policies are and to get on it. This is a time for her to start showing up and getting ready if she plans on running in 2028. Anybody who plans on running in 2028 better buckle the fuck up, put some boots on, and get ready. Because 2028, baby, 2028. Oh, boy. I saw a movie the other day. I was supposed to go to a premiere the other day, but I was not able to go to that premiere. Something happened, and it stopped me from getting to go to that premiere, and I was really upset about it. We had a couple of guests here at the hostel who came in, and they really gave me a run for my money. Literally. I ended up not being able to get to my premiere, and that really made me sad because it was supposed to be a movie by an Australian guy, and I was really looking forward to seeing him because I really wanted. I was like, yeah, please let me see this Australian movie. This would be fantastic. I'd really love to go. Blah blah blah. And that girl came in, and her and her friends, they really gave us a run for our money. Ultimately, we ended up not allowing them to stay, so they ruined a good evening for me at that premiere. I was really looking forward to it. I was really excited about it as well. I was really let down not going, but that's alright. I sort of made up for it by logging on to Hulu. Sorry, logged on to Hulu and found this movie called Lazarus. That was a great movie. God, I love that movie. It was interesting, There was it was about this. It was about the. It seemed reminiscent of the pandemic, but it wasn't the pandemic. It was like there was this really really bad a really really bad, I guess, outbreak, I should say. And with that outbreak, there was there was this family, a woman and her two kids, which we later learn after watching the movie. You later learn that the two kids are really her nieces, actually, because they don't really mention it, and they live in this cabin in the woods called Lazarus. And while watching it, again, it was reminiscent of what is that movie with Sandra Bullock with the birds, where you had to cover your eyes and your ears or something. That one of the, I forget what it's called. It was reminiscent of that with a boy, little boy, and a girl. It was a little, and they were like, oh, you got to cover your eyes and feel everything as if you're like blind or something. I remember that you can look at things or something. It was kind of reminiscent of that, except there wasn't all that extra stuff to it, extra layers, a little weird, creepy, odd, um, game esque thing to it. It was more straightforward. Woman has these two girls. They live in this cabin called Lazarus in the woods, which is like far away from like the regular the regular world. And I guess there was an outbreak of the disease. It initially started with like a woman coming to the door, like, help, I need like something to eat, blah blah blah. And then she was ready to give the woman like a can, and then she saw the woman like scratch her shoulder, and she was like, oh my god, you're infected. No, stay back, stay back. Kind of like me whenever I see Brussels sprouts. Stay back. I fucking hate Brussels sprouts so much. Stay back. Keep the Brussels away. And then she like shot her and killed her. I don't know what she did with the body. It didn't even say how she disposed of the body, which kind of freaks me out. Because like, what if she just like left the body there to decompose, and it was like this wretched reek in front of their house, and the body was like a skeleton? Because like the woman was infected, so she probably didn't want to touch her. So she probably just let the body rot for some reason. Because that would have been the safest route, really. Um, and then like it fast forwards a few years, and the girls are old enough to like run around and do stuff, and they're like in the forest playing. And the one girl was like looking at something, and then all of a sudden the little one trying to like just like jumps on her back and like tackles her down to the ground, and I was like, oh shit, no, she's gonna get her ass kicked. And then all of a sudden, yeah, it was crazy. All of a sudden like this dude shows up, and the girl's like, oh my god, it's like because they never saw like a guy before. It was given like the first thing that came to my head was like Helena Troy. I just never seen a man before. Is that even what Helen of Troy is about? Am I stupid? What if that's not what Helen of Troy is about? I'm not gonna fact check myself. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna let ignorance reign right now. so so I guess obviously she liked the boy, but then the sister saw as well. It turns out the sister ended up liking the dude. The sister was younger too, which is kind of crazy. Sister was younger, but obviously she had a little bit too many hormones, because when you watch further and keep watching it, the sister is like all of a sudden like she looked kind of like tomboyish, and then the boy showed up, and then now she was all like girly and like doing makeup and stuff, and I was like, what the fuck happened? Like, what? And then all of a sudden she's like all over this dude, and at the end of the movie she gets pregnant. She gets pregnant, get knocked up by this dude. Not knocked up, I shouldn't say that, but she gets pregnant, and it's crazy. But no, so the girl, the older sister, sees the guy, and then I guess he was hurt or something. So, but I guess she didn't realize it. So they go back inside. They live their lives. They go back with the aunt, who is, at this point, I assume was the mother. I assumed was the mother, and they're living their lives or whatever. And then she comes back, I guess, from the outside world and they're like spraying her down with some kind of like thing, some kind of solution, and burning her gloves or whatever because like they think she might have have the disease on her stuff, so they don't want her to track in any of the grossness and the bacteria and the germs. Just don't want to track it back to everyone. And they burn the gloves. The younger one burns the gloves or whatever, and they go inside and you know do whatever. And then at some point, the girl like goes back outside, and the younger one, and she disappears, and the older sister goes looking for her, and then she finds her with the guy. But at this point, the guy's basically like unconscious, so she kind of like sneaks up, like, "What are you doing?" And then the girl's like, "I don't know. I think he needs our help." And so like I don't know how they got him back because he was like unconscious. They probably dragged him, like dead weight, and they dragged him all the way back to the house, and they like stuffed him in like through like this little door and a notch in the wall. And I don't know if that led to like their basement, but that was kind of weird because like it was pretty high up on the wall. So I don't know, it's so strange. So they go in, the dude's in there, and I guess the mother, who again at that point I thought was the mother because they didn't specify, and she like he goes, "Oh yeah, let's let me see what's going on." She's like taking care of him or whatever, and then like all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, cool," whatever the case may be. Just trying to like give him like food and take care of his like wounds and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, what you notice is like now that they've done that, the fucking dude, like she invites him to dinner, and he sits down and he has dinner with them, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And well, not everyone's like, "Oh my god," but he sits down and has dinner, and then you could clearly tell that like the aunt, who at this point I thought was the mother, she was basically just like, "Who are you? Why are you here? Where the heck are your parents?" Blah blah blah. And it was very clear that they had, by this point, they had built sort of a life for themselves that was very fairly, uh, like a tucked away form of affluence in some way. And they were doing their thing, even though they were living in a cabin. It wasn't like a castle, but I mean, hey, whatever, whatever floats your boat. And so the guy basically goes, "Well, I ended up," and she's like, "You ended up?" She kind of like treated him like he was like the scum of the earth, like he just like if he was one of the Lost Boys in Peter Pan movie. It's like what the fuck? And so now we have. I'm gonna call him Lost Boy Delinquent or Delinquent Lost Boy because he had like a bunch of tattoos. Well, I have a bunch of tattoos. I shouldn't say that, but yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying. But so basically,
Come on, what are you, my mother?
yeah, exactly.
You're telling my grandma right now. Fucking auntie. No, don't be taking care of that dude. Don't be taking nobody.
Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So like,
What's your name?
oh, my name's Tyler. Hi.
Tyler. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So this guy like sits down to dinner, and he's having dinner with them, and the aunt's like questioning him like he's a delinquent. It was insane. And she was really, really, really mean and laying on the questions. And then after they go to dinner, all of a sudden they're living their lives or whatever because this is a long movie. This is like a feature at this point. All of a sudden, this group of people show up on like motorcycles, and they're just like, "Oh my god, blah blah, hide!" Yeah, and so everyone's hiding because obviously they don't want people to know where they are and that they live there. So they wanted it to seem like they weren't there, and then they come in. These people like essentially break in, like, "Oh my god, we gotta break in." They come in with like guns, and they're on motorcycles, and they have like this girl on the back of the motorcycle, and they have tattoos covered up in tattoos as well. And she's like, "Oh my god, we have another group of delinquents. What's going on?" And then so these guys come in, they like raid the house, and they take like a bunch of stuff. And after they take all these things, they take the music box and whatever, blah blah blah, and then they disappear. And then the aunt goes. The aunt comes out of hiding. Oh wait, no, the girl, the older sister that was hiding, there was like a
There were two beds because I guess the girls shared a room, so there were like these two beds, and one of the beds had like a thing where you could pull it out and tuck yourself into the corner of the bed, like the side, like against the wall, and then you just pull the sheet over you, and you're like, no one will know you're in there. And it was a great hiding spot, and that's where the older sister was. The younger sister was hiding in that little room with the guy, and then the mother, she was in the closet. she, sorry, I need some water. So she was hiding out in the wardrobe. Let's go with that. She was hiding out in the wardrobe, and she saw the tattoos, and she's like, "Oh my god, no!" And then they took the girl's music thingy, little music box ballerina thing. And so after they, rampage and look for things, take jewelry, whatever they could get, they leave. The aunt comes out at this again. At this point, I thought she was a mother. She comes out and she goes and grabs a guy, basically collars him and slams him into the wall. Who are you? Who are they? They have the same tattoos as you. Well, she didn't say it like that, not deep, but you get the point. And she goes and she's just like, and the guy's like, I don't know, boy. And she's like, don't lie to me. And it turns out that was basically like his posse. It was like his little posse of friends or whatever. So now she's like, what the heck's going on? What the heck's happening? So the girl comes when the older sister comes back, and she finds that her music box is missing, and she's all pissed about it. So she doesn't know what to do. Obviously, she knows there's a world out there, even though she's never seen it. The girls have never been off of away from Lazarus. Like, they've only ever lived on that land. They've never been out in the world, so they don't even know what's going on. The last time they were out in the world, the little outbreak had happened, and they were like children. So they don't even remember the real world. So the aunt, who I thought was a mother, which you find out later, which I end up finding out later, after a while, is typically the only one is the only one that leaves Lazarus. She's the only one that leaves and comes back. So she leaves and she comes back with supplies, essentially, for Lazarus. But she never takes them out there, so they don't know that there's an entire world out there, and they've grown up by this point. So from my view, watching as well, I thought there was still this massive outbreak. We can't see the world. It's fantastic. Whatever. So the girl gets pissed about her music box and things that are missing. So they leave the younger sister. She leaves. She stows away on the aunt's truck. So apparently, basically when the aunt had collared the guy, saying like, who are you, where you come from, blah blah, the younger sister essentially saved his ass by saying like, oh, he's a mechanic, he can fix things, let him stay, blah blah blah. And then the aunt was like, all right, fine, you can stay, whatever, if you can fix things. And then he fixed it, and then she was like, oh, you earned your place to stay because you fixed the truck. And then that's how she invited him to dinner, actually. And then that's when he was like, oh, well, my parents, I ended up. And the aunt was like, oh, you're an orphan? And he was like, I'm not an orphan, my parents just died. And then I ended up. And she was like, you ended up? You have a choice. You didn't have to end up anywhere. You could have gone anywhere or whatever. And then so as a result, basically he stayed there. And then the older sister, after she found out her music box was missing, she gets on the back of the truck, the aunt's truck, and she stows away, covers herself with like a tarp or something. And the aunt drives into the city and parks the truck and goes into the store. And then the girl removes the tarp from the top of her, and then she looks around and she's like, she sees this entire world where people are like coming out of like a hardware store, and people are out talking and doing all these different things. And then she was like, oh my god. Well, and then it just so happened that like the posse They were in the parking lot of that hardware store or whatever, because it looked like a hardware store, like a little shopping center, with like a grocery store and things. So the posse happened to be hanging out outside there, and so she, got off of the truck, the back of the truck, and she went up to them and said, "Hey, that's mine." And then they gave her like her music thingy back, and then but they like warned her like, "We know where you live, blah blah," something like that, and that you're like harboring that guy. We're gonna come get that guy, blah blah. Anyway, girl goes back to the car, gets in the truck. Sorry, gets in the truck. The aunt comes back. She didn't even see her, and then she goes, "How long has it been like this?" And she's like, "Oh my god, no confrontation." And so she's like, "Oh my god, how the heck, you never even told us this was going on. You said that there was an outbreak." And the aunt gets into this whole thing, this whole sappy thing where she's like, "It comes in waves. It literally comes in waves. Like, I swear to God, like, every now and again it breaks out. Like, it's okay now, but it's not gonna be okay tomorrow. There could be another outbreak." And basically, and then like the girl was like, "Oh shit," and she was all sad and crying, like, "You could have said something, whatever." And then she was like, "Well, when my sister died," and I was like, "Ah, there it is. You're not their mom. You're the aunt." So essentially, you found out that's when we found out that she was the aunt. Thank you. So late in the movie. What the hell? Anyway, so then they go their merry way, they do everything, and essentially they go back to Lazarus, and then they don't tell the girl. But guess what? While the older sister and the aunt were having their little lovey-dovey moment about why she never told them that the world is still normal again outside, the little one was in bed with the dude. She was over there getting all like, how do you say it? Cozy. Just all crawling up to him and doing all these weird hypersexual things. Like, to this dude. And it was so strange. And, well, I did say she got pregnant. Yeah, she got pregnant, obviously. But the interesting part about this was that the aunt and the older sister never told her that there was a world outside of Lazarus. So when they got back, they just did not say a single thing to her, and as a result, she doesn't know that there's a world out there. It's the boyfriend, I guess, also never told her. So they never let her know. So she's the only one who's basically has no idea what's going on, and it basically ends like that. But the posse does come back. They did. They came back, and they were like, and they basically ransacked the place again, and then attacked them and tried to kill them, and so the girl shot one of them, and then the guy shot the aunt. The aunt died, and as a result, now the older sister is the one taking care of everything, and she has to be the one to go out there and source food and source supplies and source everything to help them, the family, where the little sister has no idea what's going on, but the older sister and the guy know exactly that there's a world out there and stuff like that. So that happened. Did I like the movie? Yeah, I thought the movie was alright. I dig it. I thought it was pretty good. I ended up looking up the cast and the crew of the movie, and they're pretty good. The producer, the director, he's really good. He's Australian. Australia is doing some really interesting things these days. Australia is like putting themselves out there. Like, I'm not saying like Australia isn't already out there in the way that they should be, but Australia's like really putting themselves out there now, especially how with the way that they've been getting so overly involved in American culture and American pop culture and American news and things like that. It's become apparent that Australia is really trying to pivot into a much more they want to be out there essentially more. They want to be more popular than they are. Like before, it was like yeah, Australia, that one place with the kangaroos and the koalas, and now it's kind of like Australia. Oh, but the news and this person and that person and blah blah blah. You get the point. So they're trying to like cement themselves into popular culture and everything now. So I think that's really interesting to see. So this filmmaker, he was like, he did a fantastic job. The cast and crew, most of them are like American, which is great. So you get to see the Americans who are essentially working outside of the U.S. and doing more film work and media work outside. And that's really good because a lot of who is working in all these Australian media that's basically uh, situated on American culture is all Americans who just happen to be working in Australia or doing work at Australia, such as like Rita Panahi, who is from Arkansas, Megan Kelly, who I believe Megan Kelly's from like New York or Florida or something like that. I don't remember, but she did a speech at the Trump campaign. She's a diehard Republican, just like Rita Panahi. So it's really interesting to see that, and it's really cool. So I respect it. I like the Australians for that. I especially like the koalas and kangaroos. I just had to mention that because they're really cool. Except for the fact that koalas can give you chlamydia, which is disgusting. But besides that, I could live with it totally. Yeah, and that was basically it. The movie was pretty good. Overall, I liked it. Hold on, I don't remember the director's name. Let me get the director's name before I forget, so I can tell you guys who this little dude was. He's not a little dude. Lazarus, the movie. They think I'm talking about Lazarus, which is not what I'm talking about. Hold on, Lazarus movie. Alright, so the director of this movie came out this year. It's supposed to be, it's okay. It's a thriller. It's available on Netflix right now. You can get it on Netflix or Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, or Apple TV, various different places. It's really really good. Um, it was directed by, which I need to get the cast and everything. It was actually, um, sorry about that. It was directed by Alec Tibaldi. Alec is really good. Like I like it. He's really good. I believe he has like other works such as like Spiral Farm and the Daphne Project. The Daphne Project I've heard great things about, but I've never seen. I actually don't know if this is like a big deal film, but I've heard about it somehow. I'm not really sure how. I don't even think this should have been something that I've heard about, but for some reason this was a thing that has made its way into my social media, so I know about that particular project. I know about it. I've seen it before. But as for this Lazarus movie, this is really good. I'm trying to figure out if this is like his first real like feature, or if this is like um I'm not particularly sure. I have to look at more interviews with him and everything like that. But overall, he did a really great job on it. I thought he was really good at directing. I saw some of the behind the scenes work that he did, some of the photos, and I followed him on Instagram to really get a great idea of who he is as a director in making movies. And I have to say, I'm actually incredibly impressed by him because a lot of his work seems fairly new. He seems very new to the scene, but I can see really great things for him in the future. I think that he's going to make some really great movies. I like that he did the thrillers, and I like his style uh, that he uses. He uses roughly the same. I don't know if he's using the same cinematographer for all of his work, but I do like the color grading and I do like the style because I'm a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of thrillers, as most people know that I'm not a big thriller guy, but I have to say that there are a few thrillers that I come across that really catch my attention and really um, hold my attention at that, and this was one of them. I was actually really impressed. I think the last thriller I watched, and don't judge me, was Human Centipede. I think that was a horror movie. I thought the Human Centipede was great, which a lot of people will hear me say that and probably think, dude, you're fucking weird. But it was a great movie. It was a great movie. And it was a horror sci-fi, but it was good. I'm really into sci-fi movies. I think that's my thing, like sci-fi movies and sort of like weird, uh, weird little. How do I explain this? Weird little medical dramas where doctors are doing things that are probably like better left to imagination than to actually do to create. So things like the other show, I know I mentioned it last week. One of the shows that I liked was like Dexter, and I try to compare that. I compared something to Dexter. I don't remember what it was. I compared it to Dexter, but if I was comparing it to Dexter, I would have also compared it to what is that show? What's the guy? Hannibal Lecter. I feel like if you're comparing anything to Dexter, you have to in some way compare it to Hannibal Lecter. But the only reason why I would compare Dexter to Hannibal Lecter in any way is literally because of the opening scene. Because the opening scene where he's like cutting into like the deviled egg or something like that. And he's cutting into his breakfast. It gives off sort of this weird, creepy vibe, and I'm a big fan of it, so I respect it. I like the work on that. So this is definitely my favorite so far movie that I've seen. Um, since watching it, I've taken up an interest in Only Murders in the Building, which I will talk about next week or probably later on this week. Let's see how I feel about doing another podcast episode. This is only to like, and I do apologize for like the way this is recorded. It's only because the mic last night, the audio that I got back was the absolute worst. It was so bad. It was so terrible. Not that this audio is going to be any better. I think I'm going to rip my hair out trying to edit this today. But the audio from last night's session was terrible because we had a mic issue at the studio, and I figured if I could get through it, it would work. I would be able to edit it and save it in post production. That was not the case at all. The mic was in such a terrible state that we actually ended up having to phone the owner, and as a result, I have to wait to find out and hear back about if they made repairs to their mics or not, and all these different things. So for now, this will be the deal temporarily. So as a result, I might do like 2 episodes this week just to make up for the fact that I didn't do an episode last week, and then I will continue to do weekly episodes as best as I can until I decide to do something else from there. But for right now, this is about it. I do apologize for the Apple microphone audio, and that's about it. Okay, bye bye. Again, go to my website and check me out on social media, on TikTok and on YouTube and on Instagram. All the same thing, mattblack.com, which is MVTTBLVC.com, and it's at mattblack on everything, MVTTBLVC. And you can go from there. Check out music, listen to more audio podcasts, go to my website, look at photos, go to my Instagram, like my photos. And that's about it. I hope that you guys stay tuned and continue to follow along and download and do all the weird stuff that you do with podcast audio. So that's about it, and I will see you guys later. And that little cameo that you heard in the back there was just like one of my roommates who just kind of like moved in. So you guys are pretty cool with that. Bye.